Dear friends, welcome to this week's virtual Drasha. This week we have the incredible privilege of the Parshios of Nitzavim and Vayelech. This Shabbos, the last Shabbos of Tafshin Pei Dalet 5784, we are zocha to read these Parshios where Moshe Rabbeinu gives us timeless advice. The same nuggets of wisdom that Moshe Rabbeinu armed our ancestors with, prepared them for entry into Eretz Yisrael, the same lessons that we need to learn, the same lessons that we need to live, as we in Meretz Hashem prepare to enter into this new year of Tafshin Pei 5785. And to me, one of the psukim that always grabbed my attention, and there's so much in these parshios. There's the mitzvah of tshuva, kikara veilecha davar ma'od. There's the mitzvah, Moshe Rabbeinu tells us that no matter how far you stray, no matter how far you go, there's always a way back. That no matter how many wrong turns in life that I make, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is always right next to me and always willing to resume the relationship. And so profound and so beautiful for our ancestors in our past, and so incredibly contemporarily relevant as we prepare ourselves for the Yemei Adin, the Day of Judgment. But the pasuk at the beginning of Parshas Vayelech, I don't know, there's something about it that has just always grabbed my attention, and it's a simple pasuk. Parak Lamed Aleph, pasuk Aleph, chapter 31, verse 31, the first pasuk in Parshas Vayelech. Vayelech Moshe, Vaydaber es hadvarim ha'ila kol Yisrael. Moshe Rabbeinu went. He walked, and he spoke out all of these words to Klal Yisrael. And of course, again, Moshe Rabbeinu then goes on to explain, I'm 120 years old. This is the end of my life, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to take care of you. And the Mefarshim are all intrigued by one simple idea. The pasuk says, Vayelech Moshe, that Moshe went, that Moshe walked, but the Torah doesn't tell us where he went. In other words, what is that piece of information? What is it coming to convey to me? What is it coming to tell me? Just simply tell me, Vayidaber Moshe hadvarim ha'ila kol Yisrael. Moshe Rabbeinu spoke the following words to Klal Yisrael. But what's the Vayelech Moshe? What's the meaning of this walking? What's the meaning of this journeying? Where's Moshe Rabbeinu going? And what is he doing? In the Mefarshim say many different things. The Ibn Ezra writes so beautifully, Halach l'chol shevet v'shevet li'ipari mehem. In such a beautiful, moving, and yet heartbreaking scene, Moshe Rabbeinu, knowing that this was his last day in this world, went to each and every one of the tribes to take leave of them. Olahodia lahem shehu meis. Almost as if Moshe Rabbeinu felt that after 40 years of leadership, he had to tell the people goodbye. He had to tell the people that he loved them. It wasn't enough just to give Klal Yisrael, general national chizuk. But Moshe Rabbeinu went tribe by tribe, family to family, telling them, I'm leaving, bidding them goodbye, but at the same time, v'shelo yifachtu, they shouldn't be afraid. Ki Hashem Elokecha holech lifneihem, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is walking before them. There's nothing to fear, because even though I'm not here, even though I will not be at the helm, the Ribono Shel Olam will always be with you. The Malbim explains in a similar vein, Halach lekabel birchas preda mikol echad mi Yisrael. That Moshe Rabbeinu wasn't simply going to say goodbye, and he wasn't simply going to give them chizuk that they shouldn't be afraid because Chosh Baruch Hu is going to be with them, but rather Moshe Rabbeinu went to get a bracha. How beautiful and how overwhelming. Moshe Rabbeinu, the man who went up on the mountain on Har Sinai and said, Lechem lo achalti umayim lo shasisi. I didn't eat, I didn't drink. I was up on the mountain for 40 days, the first set of 40 days, the second set of 40 days, first luchos, second luchos. The man who argued with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the man who was the agent of our salvation so many times, and yet when it came time for him to take leave of this world, what did he want more than anything? What did he want? He just wanted a bracha from Klal Yisrael. And so Vayelech Moshe, he went to every tribe, he went to every family and said, Chevra, give me a bracha, that I should be matzliach, that I should be successful in this next leg of my journey. Halach likabel birchas preda michal echav Yisrael. Literally, birchas preda means a bracha of separation. When someone takes leave, it's customary to give them a bracha. He asked for a birchas preda from every member of Klal Yisrael. The truth is, there's so much to be said in this idea, these two ideas just by itself. This is Moshe Rabbeinu's last day in the world. It's interesting to see how Moshe Rabbeinu closed out his life. And because I think it's metaphorically relevant to us for how we close out the year. How did Moshe Rabbeinu close out his life? So number one, he went to give chizuk to others. In Moshe Rabbeinu's last day in this world, he didn't spend focusing on himself. Moshe Rabbeinu's last day in this world, he said, okay, my avoda is to be there for my people, it's to be there for my Jews, it's to be there for my chevra, it's to be there for my nation. So what can I do with my last few hours in this world? And he goes to give them a bracha. And according to the second, according to the Malbim, Moshe Rabbeinu realized that the sweetest, most purest thing in this world is the bracha from another Jew. Sometimes the greatest things that we could do for one another is just wish each other well, to give each other brachas. So Moshe Rabbeinu just wants a final bracha, birchas preda, from his fellow Jews. His last time in this earth, the way he closed out his life, was doing for others and appreciating what you could receive from others. An incredible metaphor for how we close out the year. How do we spend these last days of 5784? We have to focus on what we could do for the other, what we could do for the klal, but also appreciate hakaras hatov, profound gratitude for what we in fact receive from others each and every day. But there's another approach, and this other approach is by one of the most famous students of the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh, Rav Yaakov Yosef of Polnoi, known as the Toldos Yaakov Yosef. And the Rebbe Toldos Yaakov Yosef says something so beautiful. He says, what does Vayelech Moshe? What does that mean? What is that phrase? In other words, remember, everybody's bothered by the same thing. Where is Moshe Rabbeinu going? What is he doing? And the Rebbe writes, Tamid haya holech b'zrizos. Vayelech Moshe, says the Rebbe, is not necessarily descriptive of what Moshe did on his last day, but rather it's descriptive about how Moshe lived his life. Moshe Rabbeinu lived his life in a constant state of halicha, a constant state of movement, of perpetual growth, of always going from one stage to another stage, one moment to the next moment, one accomplishment to the next great thing. He goes on, he says, so why does the Torah seek to go ahead? Why does it tell us this here? Why didn't it tell us it 40 years ago? Why here? To teach us that even as Moshe Rabbeinu literally was moments, was in the last day of his life, just hours away from death, that Moshe Rabbeinu never lost his rizos, he never lost his alacrity, he never lost his halicha. Every moment, every day, every step of the journey of life, Vayelech Moshe. And you would think he comes to his last day, okay, Moshe, it's been enough halicha, it's been enough movement. You've done it. Now again, relax. You're going to leave this world in a couple of hours. Prepare yourself for the journey. And Moshe says, yeah, I am going to prepare myself for the journey. You know how I prepare myself? Vayelech Moshe. Vayelech Moshe becomes almost like the mantra. The mantra, not just for Moshe Rabbeinu, but for us also. The goal in life is to live a life of Vayelech and insert your name here. Vayelech Shmuel, Vayelech Yaakov, Vayelech Sarah, whatever your name is. But to live a life of halicha, to live a life of perpetual movement, to live a life where the thing I fear most is stagnation. The thing I fear most is being tethered to a current mediocrity that is devoid of self-actualization. Halicha, halicha, halicha. Vayelech Moshe. Always more, always further, always on to the next thing. An incredibly profound and beautiful insight by Toldos Yaakov Yosef. But there's one more piece, and then we'll tie this all together. To me, maybe it's just because of the times in which we find ourselves, that here Am Yisrael, Eretz Yisrael, now faces war on another front, on the northern front. The war has already started on the northern front. The only question is, what Chas V'Shalom is it going to turn into? The war in the north, the war in the south. Coming up to Yamim Noraim, and our brothers and sisters are still held hostage. And this has been a year of so many karbanos, and so much difficulty, and so much sadness, and so much loss. Yes, of course, so much beauty, and so much goodness, and so much holiness, so much kedusha. But sometimes we feel a little disoriented. Like, I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what I'm doing. And in my personal life, I try to get myself going in one direction. I don't know, it doesn't seem to work out. Maybe even our professional lives, I try to get myself going here. And as a nation, sometimes we find ourselves wondering, what is going on? What is going on? And maybe there's this feeling of halicha, but unlike the Toldos Yaakov Yosef, who says that halicha means like directional movement forward, maybe halicha also means a little bit of disorientation, a little bit of wandering. And maybe what the Torah is also telling us is that even the Heilige Moshe Rabbeinu had moments of Vayelech Moshe, moments of self-doubt, moments of wondering which direction is my life going in, moments of wondering what is going to happen to my beloved nation, a feeling of being disjointed, of being dislocated, a feeling of just not being situated properly, just halicha. I'm wandering, walking around a little bit, and I just don't know. I just don't feel settled. This Vayelech Moshe. But the incredible part is the Toldos Yaakov Yosef, by definition, answers up the wandering of Vayelech Moshe, and they're all one and the same. When you feel disjointed and you feel dislocated and you're not sure what you're doing, or you're not sure what's happening in your own life, or sometimes you wonder about Klal Yisrael. We know the future is bright, but I'm just sometimes so nervous and so scared about what the steps to get to that beautiful future are going to be. So what do you do in those moments? You dust off the Toldos Yaakov Yosef and Vayelech Moshe. You move yourself forward. Sometimes the way to deal with the feeling of wandering, of Vayelech, is to go ahead and counter that wandering of Vayelech with halicha, with ultimately, again, forward-moving trajectory of Vayelech Moshe. If I just kind of put everything on the side and ask myself, how do I move myself forward? How do I move my life forward? What little, small, but significant unit of movement am I going to implement in my life today? It doesn't have to be something that anyone else is going to see. It doesn't have to be something that anyone else is ever going to know about. But I know it. What is my Vayelech? If I commit myself to living a life of growth, where there's growth every single day in some small way, then the Vayelech of growth sometimes helps to alleviate the Vayelech of confusion, the Vayelech of wandering. And this beautiful and incredible lesson is what Moshe Rabbeinu teaches us on his last day. If you want to rid yourself of those feelings of just wandering around life, those feelings of confusion, those feelings of worry, those feelings of disjointedness, then ultimately live a life of Vayelech, live a life of forward movement, live a life of growth, live a life of accomplishment. And so as we close out this year, this last Shabbos of Tafshin Pei Dalet 5784, Moshe Rabbeinu teaches us so much. Moshe Rabbeinu says, use these last days to do good for your people. Use these last days to appreciate the good that you have received from your fellow Jews. Use these last days to validate the fact that sometimes I feel Vayelech a little bit disjointed. I feel a little bit out of sorts. But don't lose yourself in that. Instead, use these last days for Vayelech Moshe. Move forward. Pledge to yourself. Pledge to HaKadosh Baruch Hu that I'm going to close out these days of 5784 with days of halicha. I'm going to move myself forward. This last Shabbos, these last days, I'm going to enter into Rosh Hashanah a new person, maybe not having accomplished all the things I set out to, but that's okay. But I'm going to use this last unit of this holy year to Vayelech, to move myself forward in some way. And if I use the last part of 5784 in the model and framework of halicha, then I put myself in a trajectory for halicha, for Tafshin Pei, for 5785. May we be Zochem Yirtzeh Hashem to close out a year of halicha, to begin a year of halicha, and in that merit, may we be Zocha together with all of our families, our friends, all of Klal Yisrael for a Ksiva v'Chasima Tova, a beautiful year, filled with Mazel and Bracha. May our hostages be returned to us speedily. May our soldiers be successful b'chol ma'aseh yadehem, and may we finally merit the Geula Shlema b'mehera b'yameinu. Amen.